Hillary Lane actually broke that story.
Hillary Lane broke this story.
Hillary Lane broke the story on WUSA9.com.
Good morning and welcome to Wake Up Washington on the very first snowfall of the season. Very exciting. I'm Hillary Lane. Our colleagues have been seeing the protests and those tense situations, but let me tell you, the mood here at the Capitol could not have been more different. It felt celebratory, it felt jovial. There have been protests and rallies all over the country over the past few weeks, some having to do with the Affordable Care Act. You spoke to people all over the country to get their take on this political climate. What kinds of things have you been learning? Investigation centers around an underage party that got out of hand at the home of an Austrian diplomat. The body of the 17-year-old was found right here. This was a long speech, 1 hour. This was the second longest speech in modern history, right behind Bill Clinton. His speech was an hour and 5 minutes. Board members sounded the alarm about those secret raises in this confidential document I received from a source. I'm going to take us back to high school. Remember when that algebra teacher would put a math problem like this up on the board? At least for me, my eyes would roll back. I'd be bored. I'd be confused. Donald Trump, officially the 45th president of the United States. He'll be moving into the White House here in January with his family. You know that Dominion took the head of the Department of Environmental Quality to the Masters. This is a $2,000 trip, $1,200 at the Irish bar. What was the point of that?
You're starting to get into the sensational here now, Hillary. Don't you think so?
But it's not sensational because the Department of Environmental Quality oversees Dominion. So that's an important relationship. Good morning, guys. That investigation centers around an underage party that got out of hand at the home of an Austrian diplomat. The body of the 17-year-old was found right here in these woods behind Bannockburn Swim Club a little less than 24 hours after that party. Now let's get to the latest on that investigation. Police are talking to witnesses who were there with Navid Saperi at the party that night, and they're likely speaking with the Austrian diplomat, Christian Grinskol. And there's been questions about whether there's surveillance video that may offer clues in this case. So far, police say they don't have any. Out here live, you can see that there's a memorial that's been growing. Navid was clearly loved by so many here. There are candles, and these tea lights spell out Nav, a nickname for the tea. Now, we are going to stay on top of this. We've reached out to the Embassy of Austria and to police, and we'll bring you details as they develop. Live in Bethesda, Hillary Lane, WUSA 9.
Train versus truck. Lanestown Road, Marymount Farm Road.
On the train, Republican members of Congress headed to a retreat in Crozet, West Virginia.
Glass came out all over the train.
Their train colliding with a garbage truck on a railroad track about 100 miles southwest of D.C.
We were moving at a pretty rapid pace, and it didn't seem that there was any time for the train to slow down at all.
The impact so severe, the garbage truck was crushed and debris left all over the ground. One person inside the truck was killed and 2 were injured. Members of Congress were left with minor injuries. Members of Congress boarded that train right here at Union Station in Washington, D.C. They say the crash is a sad reminder of another event that happened just a few months ago.
I went back to the same thing.
Senator Jeff Flake says he watched Congressman Brad Winstrup, who's a doctor, spring into action again, working to save lives on this accident scene, just as he did during the congressional shooting in June.
Cutting away the jacket so they could attach some of the life-saving equipment.
An investigation is underway to determine the cause of the crash. Hillary Lane, WUSA 9. Did your daughter eat the school cafeteria food?
Last year she did. She loved it.
So a school inspection report found that there were mouse droppings and bugs.
Wow, I didn't know that.
There was some dirt and some mice droppings and some bugs.
Wow, really? I'm not sure. I wasn't aware of that.
When you give your kids money to buy food in the school cafeteria, you expect that that food is safe for them, right? Well, it turns out that may not be the case. I analyzed over 2,000 school cafeteria inspection reports, and the results are pretty gross. In Prince George's County, 1 in 4 schools were cited last year for rodents, insects, and foods kept at improper temperatures. That's according to online inspection reports. In D.C., it's 1 in 10 schools. Here's a little taste of what our investigation uncovered. Health inspectors were right here at McKinley Technology High School in October of 2016. They found mold in the ice maker, and they found the cheese was being kept at an improper temperature. They came back a week later for a reinspection, and the problems were all still there. Nothing was fixed. And health inspectors haven't been back to this school since, and kids are continuing to eat in the cafeteria here. And back in 2016, health inspectors came here to Capitol Heights Elementary in Capitol Heights, Maryland. When they were here, they found rodents. They came back 5 months later and found rodents again, and since then they have not been back to the school to recheck it. According to national guidelines, each school is required to be checked twice a school year, but re-inspections are not required.
With rodents, oftentimes we think about the possibility of getting salmonella if there's any kind of mixture of their urine or feces that gets into the food, and that's just scratching the surface.
If food isn't cooked at the right temperature, if it's sitting out for too long, what could happen to kids if they then eat that food?
Most people who get food poisoning, you get some vomiting, diarrhea, cramps, etc., but you get past it in a few days. One thing that we always worry about in kids, it can happen in adults also, but you can get a bloody type of diarrhea. But in some kids, you can also get what's called hemolytic uremic syndrome, in which you have kidney, liver failure, and oftentimes it can lead to severe morbidity, even mortality.
Wow, that's scary stuff.
It is.
The health departments we spoke to say there have been no cases of local kids getting sick from cafeteria food over the past few years. But food policy experts say that can be misleading. Parents don't always report the problems, and it's sometimes difficult to trace illnesses back to school cafeterias. Experts point to staffing as another one of their concerns. Our report found that there's just one inspector for every 235 school cafeterias, restaurants, and bakeries that need to be inspected in D.C. and Prince George's County. That's 40% less staff compared to other areas in our region where school cafeterias are in much better shape.
I just started letting him eat the school lunch. Wow.
And you might not after that.
Yeah, I definitely won't.
So, who's in charge? That would be the departments of health in each jurisdiction.
There was an increased activity last year with rodent and vermin in particular.
Is the food safe?
The kids should be safe.
But if you see droppings, that means mice were there. So isn't that a concern and a reason enough to follow up?
Yes.
But it doesn't happen all the time.
No, it doesn't.
So tomorrow night, we'll continue the conversation and focus on how to make cafeterias safer for all kids. Join us tomorrow night at 11.
Started getting the smell and the bad taste in a film on the water.
Anthony Robinson and other neighbors living in Possum Point, Virginia, say their water is poison and it's making them sick. They've been using bottled water for months.
I would scream for him and he would kind of just pour jugs over just to rinse my hair out, and it was freezing cold. But what option do you have? I mean, I went to a hotel at first.
I had to beg her to come home.
Now they're suing Dominion Energy, a power plant less than a mile away. They're accusing the company of dumping dangerous chemicals into the water supply. So is the water contaminated? 3 different water tests were done. This one by the state showed that the water is safe. This test by the county found that the water is also safe. A 3rd test done by a local environmental group found that the water is dangerous. The lead level in one of the wells, 30 times what the government says is safe.
When you don't have education, so you feel like your hands are tied, that I'm failing. How do you protect them, knowing that any minute something else can happen?
Dominion Energy wouldn't comment because of the ongoing investigation. The lawsuit is in the discovery phase. Hillary Lane, WUSA 9. Thanks so much for joining us on this Sunday morning, and welcome to Wake Up Washington. I'm Hillary Lane.
And I'm meteorologist Melissa Noor.
It is a cold morning, and on top of that, many of them plan to wear costumes during the 5 and 15K events. Let's see how it's all panning out. WUSA 9 Sarah Cosmo is near the starting line at the Washington Monument. Sarah, what are you seeing out there? These Harlem Globetrotters are amazing. I saw them when I was younger at a stadium, and it blows your mind what they can do. Their
when you were younger,
there are some icy streets here this morning, but we missed out on most of the snow from the storm. Places just north of Atlanta to the mountains of North Carolina got hit with nearly a foot of snow, and that snow has broken many branches, downing electric lines, and causing some major power outages. New York City got some snow too, but most there say they were prepared for it. always in bringing these important conversations to the forefront and making it more digestible for people and really starting a nationwide conversation. Thousands of families are having to deal with the painful experience of watching someone they love fade away because of Alzheimer's. And now a widow in Frederick, Maryland is turning her grief into action. Here's Evan Kosloff. Kathy's strength is so inspiring to watch her husband go through that, to be his caretaker, and then after he passes away to continue the cause. And then she hit so many roadblocks. It's so tough.
Persistence.
And it's amazing the way wives can step up to care for their husbands and vice versa, and really shows you the power of marriage and that promise that you make to each other.
Women are strong.
A big special election happens on Tuesday in Alabama. Republican Roy Moore would have been a shoo-in to beat Democrat Doug Jones until women accused him of sexual misconduct when they were teenagers. President Trump is sticking by the GOP candidate. Now Face the Nation host John Dickerson is discussing that today, as well as several other big issues. Good morning, John. It's amazing the way SNL takes important issues that we're all talking about, throws some satire on it, and then makes it a conversation topic, and maybe even a little bit more digestible to understand.
I was going to say, yes, so for younger people who...
If Roy Moore wins, despite the allegations against him, it's going to make a lot of Capitol Hill Republicans very uncomfortable. So what does that say about the atmosphere over on Capitol Hill?
And
a little slippery. This is the kind of thing, I know it happened to me last year. You just slip and fall, and it happens so quickly. And protests followed President Trump Saturday as he attended the openings of 2 museums in Mississippi, the state's history and civil rights museums. Those demonstrators included civil rights icon Congressman John Lewis, along with Mississippi Congressman Bernie Thompson of the drug prices are increasing at a rate more than 50 times the rate of inflation. AARP studied more than 750 drugs used by older Americans and found that in 2015, those drug prices increased by an average of 6.4%. That outpaces the general inflation rate of 0.1%.